Folks, John Freeze here at the Claremont School of Theology at the Writing Center, and today I'm giving a video on Introduction to Zotero. Okay, so first of all, what is Zotero? Why is it useful? Zotero is a citation management software, and basically it's software that makes it easy to manage your research citation. So if you're writing a paper and you need to do footnotes or bibliography, it will help you easily get the information from your sources and convert them into footnotes or bibliography in the correct style that you use. So say you want to have a footnote or bibliography that's Chicago style, Zotero can easily format the information into Chicago style. It's also just useful in terms of keeping track of all of your citations, all of your sources. So you build up over time a collection of books and journal articles, and you want to use them again for another paper. So it's an easy way to get the information into your paper. It's also good just keeping track of your sources and taking notes on your sources, and if you have files that go with your sources like PDFs or other files, you can attach that to the bibliographic information. So it makes doing footnotes and bibliographies a lot quicker, a lot easier, and keeps you organized. And it helps you, especially when you get into bigger research projects, it helps you just manage all of your sources. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how you set it up on your computer. So first thing you do is open up your browser. So I'm using Google Chrome. And then you go to, just push Zotero, type in Zotero on your browser. Go to zotero.org and download the software. So I'm using a Mac, so I'm downloading it onto my Mac. And then also I highly recommend you install a connector on your browser. So since I'm using Chrome, I'm going to install the Chrome connector. So I'm adding it to Chrome, add extension. Okay, so this little area up here is the Zotero extension on Chrome. So we'll talk about this a little more later. Okay, and so then now I want to install Zotero. So I've downloaded it, and now I'm opening up the installer. So I went to my downloads folder and then clicked on the Zotero file that I downloaded. So now it's opening it up. Okay, so then I drag it over into this folder. So now it's installing into the computer. Okay, and so then I go to my applications folder, and here is Zotero in my application folder. So now I open it up. Okay, so this is what Zotero looks like on your laptop when you open it up. This is the software. Okay, so now I've got it open. I've got it on my computer. I've got it on my Chrome browser. And so now the next question is, how do I use the basic stuff on Zotero? Just how do you basically use Zotero? Okay, so say I'm doing a research paper on pastoral theology. So what I can do is add a new collection in my Zotero on pastoral theology. Okay, so now I've got that folder. That folder is selected here in Zotero. And then I go to my browser and say I want to use Larry Graham's book on moral injury. Okay, so here's the Amazon page for that book. And so now if I look up here in the corner, I see this little blue book symbol. So that means that the Zotero extension recognizes that I have a book that I'm looking at. If it's a journal article, it'll have a different symbol. If it's a film, it'll have a different symbol. So this is a book. Sometimes, for whatever reason, Amazon doesn't always recognize it as a book. So if you don't see that book symbol, you might need to like push onto the paperback version um, and that'll turn it into a book. Or if you don't see the book symbol when you're on a book, you might want to open up, go to Google Books and see if it does it there. So you can see that also shows it as a book. Earlier today when I was using Zotero and I went to the Amazon page and it was on the Kindle version, for some reason it wasn't showing the book symbol. So kind of like taking the car to the mechanic, when you bring it to the mechanic and then the problem doesn't show up. So now that I'm recording the video, the problem's not showing up. But in the future, if you don't see, if you have a book and you don't see the book symbol, keep moving around to try and find it to where it shows it as a book. Okay, so once I found a source and I want to add it to Zotero, then I just push this button and now it's adding it to my pastoral theology folder. Okay, so now if I go back to Zotero, I can see here is the source is now in my Zotero folder, in my pastoral theology folder. Okay, so you can see that it has the title of the book, it has the author of the book, it has the abstract, it has the publisher, it has the publication date, has the number of pages, and so this is, you know, the basic information you would need for creating a footnote or bibliography. For some reason, and I don't know why, it's not recording the place. And I think that's, for some reason, Amazon just doesn't provide you with the place anymore. Like if you look on this information here about the book, it's no longer giving the place. And some journal, like say you're writing an article for a journal and they want to know the place of the publication, or maybe some professors want to know the place. So you might need to like look in the book itself, like on your Kindle or the actual book itself, to find the place of the publication. So just for curiosity, I'm going to try with Google Books and see if they put the place in or not. They also don't put the place. So for whatever reason, you need to add in the place manually. So you need to open the book and find it manually. And so this is an important point, that you can download the information from Amazon or Google Books, but you need to double check to make sure that whatever it automatically downloaded is correct. So don't take it for granted that it's going to be correct. Sometimes it may be a book that's an edited volume, and so you need to change this from author to editor, or you may need to add some more authors, things like that. Okay, so that's adding a book to Zotero. So now let's do a journal article. So let's say I want to get a article from the Journal of Pastoral Theology. And so I go to that journal page. And I'm picking the latest volume. So yeah, say I'm interested in this article. So now I'm on the page of the article in the journal. And so if you look up here, you'll see in this Zotero section that this is the paper, a symbol for a paper. So it's not a book, it's a paper. Okay, and so I want to save that to Zotero. So again, I want to make sure it's the right folder is selected. If it's another folder, if once I push the button, it might put it into a different folder. Um, so I have the right folder selected, and then just press the button, and now the information is going into the folder. Okay, so now in this case also the PDF of the article downloaded as well. And so the reason that's happening is that this journal has the PDF already connected with the article on the article page. And so I'm at Claremont School of Theology and I'm accessing this journal from Claremont School of Theology. So I'm already, like, the permissions or whatever for me to log in makes it to where I have access to the PDF. And so now if I go to, here's the article now. So I'm back in Zotero and here's the article. If I press this little arrow, I'll see that the PDF of the article is attached to the bibliographic information of the article. And so now I could open up that article. So for some reason it's using preview to open the article. You can probably change what the default is to Adobe Acrobat or whatever PDF viewer you have. But now I'm in the article and I can look at it, and even you can make changes. So say you're reading the article and you highlight a section of the article, and then you can save. So that highlight will now be saved on the PDF. And so say you're using Adobe Acrobat to look at the article, you could write notes or you could do other things and it'll save it. So then when you close the document, it's the PDF is stored on your computer through Zotero. So this is a way that you can store PDFs for articles. And so then when I open the article up again, you can see the highlights are there. So that's one of the main uses I get from Zotero, is that I have articles and I put the PDFs there with it, and so that's a way just to keep it organized. And so when I go back to the article and I want to, see what's important about it, I can open up the PDF and the notes will be there, or the highlights. Another thing you can do is, if you double click on the PDF, you can rename the file from the metadata. So you just push this button and it'll automatically change the name of the PDF to be the author, the date, and the title of the article. Okay, so now I've got sources in my Zotero folder, and so then when I'm writing an article, so now I'm got Microsoft Word and I'm writing the actual article. So I've got an article on pastoral theology and moral injury. Okay, so in his book on moral injury, Larry Graham states yada yada yada. Okay, and so now I'm ready to add a footnote. So one way of doing it is manually in Zotero. So I would go to Larry Graham's book, and so if I'm using a MacBook and I push two fingers at the same time on the trackpad, and that brings up this little menu here. Okay, and so I want to create bibliography from item. I want to pick notes because I'm doing a footnote, and I want to pick the style. So I want to use Chicago Manual of Style. I want the full note version of it. And then I want the note, basically I want to copy it to the clipboard, and so then I can paste it into my Word document. So I put copy to clipboard, click OK. I go back to the Word document. Okay, and then now I add a footnote. So I go to references, insert a footnote, and then I do Command V or paste, and here's the footnote. So this is the footnote in the Chicago style. So we got the author, the title, and the publisher and the date. So again, as I mentioned before, that for whatever reason, both Amazon and Google Books didn't put the place for Abingdon Press. So if I need to add that in, and so you'd have to go to the book itself and find out the location. So I can't remember where Abingdon Press is, but let's just, for example, say it's New York. Okay, so now I've got that in there. And so create bibliography, notes, Chicago, full style, copy to clipboard, okay. And so now I'm just gonna replace this with the newer one. So now you can see that New York is there. So that's the correct, that's the added detail that I needed. Okay, so now let's say I'm doing I'm still doing pastoral theology, and I'm writing a paper on trauma, and so I'm interested in Shelley Rambo's work on trauma, and I have a podcast from her when she was on Homebrewed Christianity. So Homebrewed Christianity is a podcast that's made by a CST alumni. So I'm going to that episode. So here's the Homebrewed Christianity podcast, and here's the info on that podcast. Okay. So now if I look up here, I don't see the podcast symbol. So I don't think Zotero really knows what this page is. It doesn't recognize it as a podcast. So that means I'm going to need to manually add that citation. Okay. So I go in here, and this little green circle with the white plus sign, that's the add an item. Okay, so podcast isn't in the short list, so I need to go to the long list. I go to podcast. Okay, so title of the podcast, Spirit and the Effects of Trauma. So I copy that, paste it in there. Podcaster, I forget the guy's name, so I'm going to go here and look. Trip Fuller, that's the main guy. I guess he's opened it up to more people, but I know just from listening to this podcast over and over again that Trip Fuller is the main guy that is doing it. So I copy Trip. So my podcaster here. So the Zotero will put the last name first. So I'm going to cut his first name and then add it here to the first name. Okay, so now the series title is Homebrewed Christianity. And let's see, I'm not sure if they put an episode number or not, so I'll check. I don't really see an episode, so you might look in, on your iPhone or whatever you use for podcasts to see if there's a specific number or not. It does have a date here on it. That's just a comment. But anyway, you get where I'm going here. You need to find, the specific date of the podcast. So you might need to look in your podcast player to find the date. So you just enter in the rest of the information that you find on this. Here's the URL. That's always handy too. So again, the main idea of a citation is you want the reader to be able to get to your source so they can check out your source. So I can paste in the URL of that podcast. Okay. So now I look here in my folder, I got a podcast. So here it is, the podcast. So again, create bibliography from item. I'm picking a note, Chicago full note, copying the clipboard, okay. Okay, so then I could say, I'm writing my paper and in the Homebrew Christianity podcast, constructive theologian Shelley Rambo states yada yada yada. Insert a footnote, paste. So now we see, here's the podcast now as a footnote. Okay, and then in this in the SPT journal article so and so states yada yada yada. Okay, create bibliography. So again, I'm using a Mac laptop. On the trackpad, I put 2 fingers at the same time on the trackpad. That gives me this little menu. I create bibliography from the item. I want it to be Chicago full style. I want it to be a note, not a bibliography. I copy to clipboard. I hit OK. I insert footnote and paste it in. Okay, so you can see here now I've got a book, a podcast, and a journal article as sources here in my paper. Okay, so then when I get to the end of my paper and I'm ready to do the bibliography, let's say if I do page break. Okay, now I do my bibliography. So I go back to Zotero, and now, so this is important then, that when I'm finished with my project, I'm going to have all these sources, right? So I want to make sure that I don't have any extra sources that are not in the paper. So right now I got 2 versions of this same source. So I'm going to get rid of one of them. So I want to make sure I have, I don't want to leave anything out, and I don't want anything extra that is not in here. So sometimes, like if I'm working on a paper, I might create a sub collection, and I call it the bench. So kind of like you have a sports team, and you got players on the bench, and then you got players out in the field, right? So what I do is I'll put all the sources I have that I've looked at in my project on the bench. So you can just drag it over here into the bench. So now when I look at the bench, I see the sources. And so then So this folder is what I want to use for the bibliography at the end, right? So I've already dragged all of them into the bench, so now I can clear this out. So this is remove items from collection. It's not delete. So there's two different things here. One is if you move it to trash, you're just deleting it completely off Zotero. If you remove it from a collection, it's just removing it out of this folder, but it's still in the main overall library of Zotero. So you still have the sites, you would still have the sources, and you could, when you're doing another project, you could just drag them into that other project. Okay, so then so say for example, I'm doing research and I've got, um, let's say, I have other books that I'm using here, right? So say there's this other Larry Graham book, and say I got a book by Kathleen Greider. Whoops, misspelled it. And say I got a book by Dwayne Bidwell. Okay, so here's an example on, I'm in Amazon, I'm at a book, but for some reason it's not recognizing it as a book. It's recognizing it as just a web page. So I need to keep playing around until it shows up as a book. So let's see if I push on the hardcover version. Now it shows as a book. So that's what I want. So then I save it. So now again it's going into my subfolder of bench in my pastoral theology folder in Zotero. Okay, so say, yeah, I'm doing my research and these are all of the different sources that I look at, or even I think I might look at them. But then when I'm actually writing the paper, I don't use all of the sources, right? So maybe I use Dr. Bidwell's, but I don't use Dr. Greider's. So she's here on the bench, but when I was actually writing the paper, for whatever reason, I didn't use her paper, right? So I just drag over what I'm going to use in the paper, what I actually cite in the paper. That's what I'm going to drag into this folder. Okay, so this is the final list of what I used in my paper, and now I'm ready for the bibliography in the paper, right? So now I'm on the bibliography part. So then I need to highlight all of the sources. So I got my MacBook, I click on the top source, and then I hold down the shift button, and then I use the arrow, the down arrow, and then now that selects all of the sources. And then I use two fingers, I push the trackpad. So two fingers at the same time, push the trackpad. And now again, create bibliography. And so now this time I don't want notes, I want actual bibliography here. So I click bibliography. I want it to copy to clipboard. I want the Chicago style, the full note. I hit OK. Go back to my Word document and paste it into my Word document. And so here I have now the bibliography for my paper. Okay, so that is the basic usages of Zotero. That's how you set it up and how you get sources from your browser, or also how you add sources manually. And then when you're writing a paper, how you cut and paste footnotes or bibliography into your paper. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording for now, and I'm going to, in the next recording, I'll show how to get Zotero and Microsoft Word integrated together so that you can get footnotes. It's basically the plugin for Microsoft Word in Zotero. So that's what I'm going to do in the next video. Today I'm going to talk about how to get Zotero into Microsoft Word so then you can use Zotero from Microsoft Word. So in the previous video I talked about how to get Zotero downloaded on your computer and how to get it up and running and just the basics of how to use it. So what I had talked about before is how to create a footnote or a bibliography from Zotero and basically copy it and paste it into a Microsoft Word document. So today I'm going to talk about how to basically install Zotero into Microsoft Word, and so then you would work from Microsoft Word to get stuff from Zotero. Okay, so what you do is you go to the Zotero menu, you go to Preferences, and so you'll have these different tabs here: the General, the Sync, the Search, the Export, and what you want is Cite. So you go to Cite, and then you go here to Word Processors. And so I've already got I've already got Zotero installed into Word, so it says reinstall for me. But if you hadn't done it yet, it'll say install. It won't say reinstall, it'll say install Microsoft Word add-in. And so you just click that button. And so now sometimes it'll say you don't have a recent enough version of Microsoft Word, and so it won't allow you to do it. So if that's your situation, then you may need to update your version of Microsoft Word. And if you're not able to do that, then you may have to give up using Zotero in Word and just do like I showed you in the last video of working, copying and pasting from Zotero and getting it into Word. I've used both, and quite frankly, I think both are equally effective, equally efficient, equally useful. So, don't despair if you can't get it into Word. But anyway, if you press this button, and then a lot of time what it'll say is if you have Word running, it'll say you need to restart Word. So you just quit Word and then start it up again. Okay, so once you've done this part of it, then you go to Microsoft Word. And so I'll just create a new document here. Okay, now you'll see here now in Word, I have the Zotero option here in my menu of stuff I can do. So that tells me then that the Zotero add-in has been installed into Microsoft Word. Okay, so say I'm writing a paper, and then now I want to do a footnote. So instead of insert footnote in Microsoft Word, you go to Zotero. You hit Zotero, and over here you do add citation. And I don't know why, but it usually makes me want to click twice. So I click this twice. Okay, and now if it's my first time in this paper, I'll set the style. So I usually do Chicago style full note. And in this paper, I want to use footnotes instead of endnotes. And these things are a little wonky stuff I wouldn't worry too much about, but footnote and Chicago style. Okay, and then you'll see this search bar. And so here then is where you search. So in Zotero, I have tons of sources, right? But I only want certain ones. So say I'm writing an article on practical theology, and I want to quote Bonnie Miller McLemore. So I'll type in Bonnie. So that's a pretty unique name. And so now I'll see everything I have in my Zotero written by Bonnie Miller McLemore. And so then I pick which one do I want. So say I want her encyclopedia article, and say for this footnote I want to use two sources from Bonnie. So I'll pick another one. Let's say I want to use her edited the book she edited. So I've got these two sources, and then I just hit return on my keyboard on my computer. And there you see it's going to be down at the bottom. I've got this footnote with both of her sources here in Chicago style down here at the bottom of the page. Okay, so that's how you do footnotes. And then for bibliography, well, to make it better, I'll do one more footnote just to show you. So say I'm typing some more stuff. I want to do another footnote. So I add a citation. Let's say I want to quote Ruard Gonzavort, who's another practical theologian. So again, he's got a pretty unique name. So if I just type Ruard, all his stuff will come up. Okay, so say I pick one of his. Hit return. Okay, there it is. The second footnote is now here in the bottom of my paper. Okay, so I'm getting to the end of the paper, and now I'm ready for my bibliography. So usually if I'm writing a paper, I'll put a page break. And then, okay, here's where I want my bibliography to go. And so now all I got to do is go to Zotero and do add bibliography. And there it goes. All of my sources that I used in this paper for footnotes, now it puts it down here as bibliography at the bottom of the page. So I'll probably want to type bibliography just to make it clear. And I just make it Times New Roman, 12 point, and there I go. Okay, so that's it. That's how you install the Zotero add-in into Microsoft Word, and then how you use it once it's installed. So again, just to review, to get it installed, you go to Zotero, Preferences, the Site menu, Word Processors, and then Install. Right now it says reinstall because I got it in there already. You hit Install, and then it puts it in the Word. And then when you're in Word, you should see this Zotero button, and from here you can do stuff. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope this is useful. If you have any questions or comments, you can email the Writing Center, and we'll be happy to help you out.